Okay, we're live.
Okay, welcome everybody to the Committee of the Whole meeting for District of Sechelt, Wednesday, April 8th, 2020. It is 3:01 and I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd like to thank you all for joining us. Today we have members of the public joining us through the Zoom online meeting platform, some from their computers and some by phone. The process for public participation will be the same as it was for a regular face-to-face public council meeting. So we ask that you hold your questions until the end of the meeting. Everyone is automatically muted when they join the Zoom meeting. After adjournment, if you have logged in online, there are two ways that you can ask a question. You may use the raise hand feature at the bottom of the Zoom screen, or you can type your question into the Q&A section. We may respond verbally or in writing. The chair will unmute attendees as needed. For people joining us with telephone line only, please stay on the line if you would like to ask a question. As a shortcut, you can also use *9 to raise your virtual hand if you have a question. So, moving along, I'll call the meeting to order and ask if there are any declarations of conflict from council. Seeing none.
Oh, sorry, there was somebody raised their hand.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's not a conflict. I just did want to advise that I will have to leave this meeting early. I'm going to stay as long as I can, but I've got to leave about 3:40-ish.
Thank you very much. Christine has raised her hand. She's on mute.
Sorry, and Councillor Lamb is on with two different devices. We need him to leave, exit from one of those.
Sorry, I'm not sure which device is Tom, not the one with your picture, Mayor Seegers.
How do you turn Zoom off?
Click leave meeting, bottom right.
Does that work or not?
I'm still getting feedback, Tom.
Yeah, Carrie Ann, I think you need to remove that, the one with my picture on it, remove that one from the meeting.
Okay, done.
Okay, is everybody good?
I think we got her.
Yeah, we don't have a video feed for Tom, but I believe he's online and should be able to participate. Oh, there he is.
Okay. So can I ask for an adoption of the agenda? First, second, all in favor? We have no appointments or delegations and no new business. So moving on to business items 5.1 and the proposed sewer operating fund summary. And is that Mr. Douglas?
Hello, everybody. Everybody can see the agenda in the middle of the screen now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so the first thing that we want to walk through is the sewer operating fund and capital. This is just an area of the, again, of the district of Sechelt where we have sewer connections at this point. And just another quick reminder that the sanitary sewer operations oversees the general operating and maintenance of the following areas: the Water Resource Center, Dusty Road Pretreatment Plant, the entire collection and collection system, 9 lift stations, and the outfall. The last time that we were together and talking budget, this was the outcome of that presentation. It showed a $373,000 deficit. And this is just a little more detail. So we're taking this screen and just rolling it out a little bit more so you can see where we get our revenues and the areas of expense: sewer administration, collection, connection, treatment, Dusty Road, and principal payments. Once again, the last time we met, we went through one-time costs that we wanted to include in the budget. And this is a schedule that shows those one-time costs. Those are still included in the budget at this point. And these are what staff are recommending needs to be done. Through discussions at our previous council meeting, it was important that we separate the septic portion from the sewer operations, as septic has its own revenues, and really it has its own expenses, not only operating expenses, but either projects or capital or maintenance of high dollar value that we need to look out for. And the other reason I separated it this way is because we need to be able to look and make sure that the septic receiving area can be sustainable by itself and not rely on the taxation or parcel taxes from residents to pay for septic receiving. So once again, last time we left, we had revenues of $320,000. We had septic expenses of $175,000. The plan was to transfer $144,000 to reserves for future work or work that needs to be done. And so the total of expenses there equals $320,000. So revenue and expenses equal. That means there's no deficit, no surplus. When we look forward, bottom half of this slide, when we look forward, we're trying to look at what's coming at us for Dusty Road, what's coming at us for the pretreatment center. And we need to start saving money and putting money away to capture these costs or be able to fund these costs from septic revenues down the road. And so we have a septic sewer disposal in 2021 of $500,000. Once again, this is an estimate. This is sewage that is sitting in tubes up there, dewatering they call it, and they need to be disposed of next year. And this is our estimate for that. The following year in 2022, we need to remove more more solids. They're not biosolids. More solids from the lagoon at $200,000. In 2022, we also want to start looking at a site closure plan and redevelopment plan. What are we going to do in 2031 when our lease runs out there? And so we're estimating that at $150,000. And then due to the removal of solids in 2022 and 2024, after 2 years of dewatering, we'll need to dispose of that again for $500,000. So coming up, we know we have $1.3 million of expenses before we even look at closure, what that's going to cost for $1,350,000. So the current rates for, I say biosolids, but solids disposal here is 23 cents per imperial gallon. We also have it in our bylaw that's 506 cents per liter or $50.60 per cubic meter. And after we've calculated what we are going to need over the next number of years, we're recommending a fee going to 51 cents per imperial gallon or 11.22 cents per liter. $11.22 per liter and $112.18 per cubic meter. So what does that do? What does that look like on our financials? So our revenue would go from $320,000 up to $710,000. Septic receiving expenses would be very close to about 175, where it is today. We'd be able to put away $534,000 annually into a reserve to cover those future expenditures. And so the total expenses and transfers would be 710. So that would be there would be no deficit, no surplus. We would be estimating the reserve balance at the end of 2020 to be $534,250. And if you remember 2 slides earlier, we talked about we needing $500,000 next year to dispose of the solids that we currently have on the ground. And so we would just have enough to cover it if we go up. So as we look forward into 2021, when we're looking at doing some other work, once again, our septic receiving revenues, our expenses are transferred to reserve, and our project's estimate for septic would be $650,000, and we would have enough to do that, and we'd have $418,000 left in the reserve after 2021. So this is kind of the way I've broken out our long-term planning. And so from there we go to 2022. Same thing. We're not asking for a future revenue hike at this point, but it will be looked at either annually or every 2 years to make sure we're attaining the revenues that we expect to get. So in 2022, same with revenues, 710, expenses, total balances. We have planned 200 grand in capital or solid, just removing solids from the lagoon. And our reserve balance would be estimated at $752,000. So we're accumulating this reserve for 2 reasons: for closure and for the work that we need to do in the next number of years. Then in 2023, revenues very similar, expenses very similar. There's no capital planned in 2023. Our reserve balance would go up to $1.287 million as an estimate. In 2024, we would be looking at same revenues and costs. We have capital at $500,000, and our reserve balance at 2024 would be estimated at $1.3 million. So as a long range plan, this bump really helps the long range look of this fund at the area, this septic receiving area, and allows us to accumulate funds towards eventual closure. In 2025, this is outside the 5-year plan, but same thing. You know, we're not planning capital in 2025. Our reserve fund balance will go up to $1.8 million. 2026, same thing. Revenues are similar, expenses are similar. Our reserve balance at the end of the year, we would be estimating it to be $2.389 million in 2026. Now, just remember, this is 5 years away from the time that our lease would run out up there. And at this point here, we don't know how much that's going to cost, but we know it's going to be quite a bit more than $2.3 million. So yeah, I don't know if you have any questions on septic, but we could pause here to take a couple of questions.
Any questions from council?
Hello, are you there? Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Tom?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So to get started off with, does the District of Seashell, it breaks its it's septic receiving into collection, treatment, and septage. Is that correct?
Our sewer system, we have broken out into, let's say, 4 different areas or 5, of which we're trying to separate it into 2. Septage treatment, and this is just treating people with sewer tanks on their property. And our sewer operations would include the WRC and our collection system and our lift stations.
Okay. And can we track the income from each to see if there's a profit or a loss from each one of those areas?
Yeah, so here we've broken out the septage by itself.
Okay.
And so we're just reviewing that because the septage in itself has it's got a bit of a life of its own. It's got a bit of a limited life. It's also got its own revenues from the people who hire haulers to move their septage to the site, and obviously the treatment that goes on at that site.
Okay, and okay, that's good. I just want to make sure that we can track each one and see if there's a profit or a loss, so then we can you can define where increases have to be, or making whatever we have surpluses. One of the things that kind of got me a little bit baffled is the whatever it is, the rates here. It says 23 septic receiving. It says 23%, 23 cents per gallon, and then it looks like it's $5.06 per liter, but those numbers don't. Yeah, so it's pay. I can't even see this page here.
Page 10.
Page 10. Yeah, so it says $5.06 per liter, but it says 23 cents per imperial gallon. So that doesn't make any sense to me.
I think that's per meter, or I'll have to relook at the bylaw, I'm sorry, but the 2 important ones are the 23 cents per imperial gallon and the $50 per cubic meter.
Okay, well, let's see 5 cents. 5 cents. 5 cents. It says $5.06.
Yeah, if you hang on a sec, I'll go to the bylaw and just make sure that's what that is.
Okay.
But if you want to ask your next question, we can go to the next question.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Somebody else have one? Or
Are you finished, Tom?
well, I'm not really finished, but I've got a few, so I don't mind spreading the wealth.
Continue on. I don't see anyone else's hand up, although I can't see everyone on the screen. Oh,
There are 2 other hands up right now.
okay. Councillor McLean then.
Yeah, thank you. I just need a little help with the 500,000. I was wondering if perhaps Christine could explain what specifically that is and what we have done previously for that fee.
Oh, Christine, you're muted.
Unmute. Do that for me, Carrie Ann.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you. If you think about the history of the Dusty Road facility, prior to the WRC being built and treating all of the wastewater from the district of Sechelt, the Dusty Road facility treated half of the wastewater for the city. When the WRC came online, the facility at Dusty Road was kept strictly for septage receiving. And so that means that people that don't have access to the sewer system and they utilize septic fields, the septic contract septic haulers will get their septic tanks sucked out, and then that material gets taken up to the Dusty Road facility. So in the past, there was a lot of different things that they were doing. The solids could be removed and they could be sprayed onto the trees in the back, which is a common process. But that was stopped, and I can't remember the exact date. That was before my time, but it was sometime since the WRC has been utilized, as sometime since the WRC has been built. So there hasn't really been any historical past to compare this with, but we do have a lot of solids up there now, and we know we need to do something with them, and we're dewatering them, and what the end goal of that and how we're going to get them off site and where they're going to go, that's to be determined. We're not sure yet. So also in the budget request was to have a consultant to come in to look at the facility, look at how much solids that we accumulate, and kind of help us advise us on what the best option is for processing those septic solids at the Dusty Road site. So all that cost should be absorbed by the users of the Dusty Road facility.
Okay, so essentially they've been sitting there since we brought on the WRC. If I'm correct, the biosolids from the WRC are going to save us soils, but
that's correct, Councillor McLean, yes.
Yeah, but
Totally
these ones
separate.
don't have a home.
Yeah, totally separate.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Who else had their hand up? Mayor Seegers?
Alton.
Okay, so we did, last year, I believe, we did take some of the solids out of the Dusty Road site.
Yes, correct.
I think we spent 200,000 doing that last year.
Yes.
What happens to the liquid from that site?
It's captured, those big geotubes, they're called, they're like big flat balloons. They're housed in a membrane, an impervious membrane that has a tube kind of on one end that gathers it together so that there's a discharge that returns the liquid back into the ponds, which in the liquid ends up coming down to the WRC for treatment.
Okay, so if it comes down to the WRC for treatment, how is that paid for? How is that showing up in this budget?
So right now, there is no charge from the WRC to the septic receiving for that. We'd have to figure out what our flows are and do a calculation as a percentage of what other flows we get.
So personally, I think that needs to happen.
Yes.
Because we have liquid coming from there that the septic users should be paying for, that currently the sewer users are paying for. That's another cost. And I don't think that's going to happen for this budget, but it needs to be put in place for next one.
I'll guarantee you'll have a number for that for next year.
I know you've done, this has been amazing how you've been separating this out. That's really good.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure that we keep moving it forward. I just want to point out you're looking to collect this money over the next number of years because of the 2031. So there's going to be two components there that we're going to have to address. One will be decommissioning this site. So that means getting rid of everything that's on that site, whatever it is, putting it back to the way it was before, which potentially has some contamination. And then also coming up with another solution for dealing with this, with the septic, right?
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
and that the amount that we're going to be gathering over the next couple of years, that's something we'd have to look at so we ensure that we actually are collecting enough.
Yes, I agree 100%.
Okay, Councillor Toth, you had your hand up.
Thank you very much. Looking at the extrapolation out to 2026, would it not be prudent for us to be including some form of inflationary increase on our expenses? I mean, I'd love to assume that it's going to cost the exact same in 2026 as it does today, but I don't think that's realistic. Just wondering if you've taken that into account.
At this point, I haven't, but that we will be doing that. You know, we know that we need to start putting money away, and if everything did stay very similar, we would have $2.4 million by 2026. And so if you added a 2% inflation rate, you could see that that $2.4 million won't be there, you know, once you start adding inflation. So, you know, the lift that we're asking for now is really to get us on track. And like I said, we'll be reviewing the fees annually, probably annually, to make sure that we're going to reach certain goals along the path, because we can't get to 2031 and have, you know, just a couple $1 million in reserve here.
Is that it, Alton? Or Councillor Toth, I should say.
I'm okay for now. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? My only question was around the one-time costs. Have we critically looked at those, and those all need to happen this year? I'm
Christine?
assuming. Are you still there, Christine?
Yes, I am. Sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
Yes, that's correct. They're needed.
Okay. All right.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, Tom, do you have something else you wanted to?
Yeah, I just, one thing here is in the one-time list of one-time events there, it's got a new full-time employee. So a new full-time employee is not a one-time only. I mean, that'll be something that goes on and on, I would imagine.
Yep, you're right. When I presented this at the previous committee of the whole meeting, it was one time and other costs. And yeah, we don't intend the full time to be a 1-year item, no.
Right. Good. Okay. Yeah. No, the rest of my questions are sewer related, so we can move on.
Okay.
All right, continue on then, Mr. Douglas.
I think Mayor
Sorry,
Stig,
yeah, I have a question.
Oh, sorry. I
Okay.
can't see everybody the way it's showing on my computer, so I can't unless I'm not doing something right. So sorry.
Are you on a PC, Brenda?
Yeah.
Okay, go to the side of where the PowerPoint is, and you can
Mhm.
actually make your screen on the right, like you can move that over. So you can see more participants.
Also make sure to turn on gallery view rather than speaker view in the top right corner.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll play around. Continue with your question.
So one-time costs, the one right at the top, liquid waste management plan. So this is one that's been on my radar for a while, and I think I've brought it up before. So we're putting together a liquid waste management plan for those people who are not on sewer, basically. So, but we're charging the sewer users to actually pay for it. Should this not come out of general revenue instead of out of sewer revenue?
I guess from my perspective, it is a sewer related cost. You probably could have some of the septic people paying for that, because the plan would include that as well as new existing users, new users, and, you know, as we transition to a more complete system, you know, it's really everything.
So in other words, for next year, part of what the work that needs to be done is to really take a look at all of the different costs for all of the different areas and make sure that we're accurately splitting them out.
Yes, I will include liquid waste management planning within the septic area.
Are everybody good to move on?
Excuse me, I do have one comment. This is Christine.
Hi, Christine.
There are some of those one-time expenses that are ongoing, that will be ongoing. Just wanted to make that statement.
Can you identify which ones, Christine?
Sure, if I can, I can't see it though right now. I can't see the,
Okay.
but I can look on my phone. Let me see here. As you mentioned, it's the operator is one, servicing of the odor control system. I just won't know the frequency of that until after we have it done the first time, but I'm guessing that it's bi-yearly. Gas detection, flow servicing, and calibration, that's a yearly requirement. Greenhouse maintenance, that's at least, that's the cost for a full year until we can reevaluate what we have going on in there, changing the plants and such. Diffuser replacement, that kind of carries on over, depends on what we find this first time. We're hoping it'll be this $40,000 will be spread out over 4 years, but we're not sure what we'll find right now. And it'll be continuing on all the time, one FBR approximately every 4 years. Replacement carbon for the odor control, estimating every couple of 3 years for that. That's soft, that I don't, this is for the 5-year period, right? Is that what we're talking about? One time for 5 years?
Well, the heading is not, in my presentation previously, wasn't just one time.
Okay.
But here it is. And
another one, the parts for the disinfection units, that's spread out every year. That's a yearly cost. Headwork service, I'm not too sure about that one yet. Guessing every 3 years, just a guess. And HVAC boiler service requirements. There's a portion of that the HVAC system and multi-stack system needs to be maintained on a yearly basis. I'm just not sure the extent of that once we get this initial one out of the way. Blower servicing is approximately every year to 15 months. And that's it. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
If I could jump in.
Councillor McLean.
Yeah, thank you. Given that a lot of these are ongoing expenses, I'd really like to see us amortizing these over several years. So for example, the ones that are being done every 3 years, divide that cost by 3. So we're not having that big hit. The overall approach to this whole budget I'd like to see is that we are trying to minimize any rate increase for this year in particular. And this is taking the exact opposite and putting all of these ongoing costs into this year, given the situation we have with COVID.
May I speak?
Yes, Christine.
Thank you, Councillor McLean. I hear where you're coming from. The one issue that I have is that these need to be done now before moving forward. It would have been until we've assessed what our maintenance requirements are, then we can move forward. And so moving forward after this year, we can space that out. But these requirements are required. These projects, these tasks are required this year because they haven't been done yet.
Mayor Seegers.
Thank you. I understand what you're saying, Christine. I understand what Councillor McLean is saying. If some of these items in here are regular ongoing maintenance requirements, they need to be included. And they need to be included in the base budget. But if like you're saying, some of these are, if the cost that's put in here, I don't know, I'll pick one. Greenhouse maintenance, you're saying that 6,000 is every year, then that should be in here. $6,000 on the base budget needs to be in every year.
Yes, sorry, excuse me.
Right, but then something like, I You're talking about the gas detection and flow servicing. Maybe that's every couple of years. So then half of it should be in here, and it should be on the base budget every year, half of it. So we need to know what that base budget is, and not the multiples that are included in here. And I understand you're saying some of them you don't know how often yet.
And I think that's where we're at right now too, Mayor Seegers, is that we were 5 years in and we're still evaluating what the needs are and what the service requirements are for our equipment here. And just to give you an example, the gas detection and flow servicing and calibration, that is a yearly thing. If we have something that we're not sure of whether it's going to be 2 years, so we can use, for example, the headworks service. It hasn't been done yet and it needs to be done. Once we have that information and we move ahead, then we'll be able to give a clearer picture to develop that base budget, which is part of what we're doing right now.
So what you're saying is the amount, the dollar values that are in here is what the costs are going to be this year.
Yes.
Okay.
So as we go out, we can take the information that Christine is getting and put money aside annually into a reserve. So we time it out so that we have enough money to do that in 2 or 3 years, rather than going peaks and values and charges. We'll just try and keep the charge levels at, as slowly increasing as possible, rather than having spikes.
Any other follow-up questions? I can't see Tom. Does he have his hand up? No.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Douglas, carry on.
Okay, thank you. Sewer operations. Last time we got together, we were showing a $373,000 deficit. And this is the information that was provided at that point. And this is for operations. This slide that you have here, there was one number was wrong at the bottom. This is just giving you a little more detail on the revenue side of it. Interest earned, we split that out and just pulled out, made sure the fees and charges were very identifiable, rather than having interest included in one of them.
Dave, can I just interrupt for 2 seconds?
Yep.
Could you zoom in on your slides a little bit? Just so it takes up the whole screen.
When?
Keep on going. I assume we're seeing the same thing you are. You get in there. I think you can go a bit more.
Yeah, more.
Okay, so this slide, this one, your total of the interest out of what we had under treatment fees and charges from the previous slide. And from here, what I would like to do is go to page 41 of the agenda, and that would be the sewer capital. So I'll scroll down to page 41, and then we'll come back to this, the next section. Okay, so this is what your page 41 should look like. Is everybody there? This is the sewer capital that is being estimated for the year. We'll go through them quickly here. We've been through the 2020 list prior, and what I've included here is the 5-year outward looking, which includes those things we talked about with the septic cost. . sanitary mains for $80,000. Replace effluent outfall for $500,000. That's being recommended that we borrow short-term MFA on that one. Lift station telemetry for $122,000. We're looking at 60. This is a split year project, so 61,000 from this year and 61 for next year. Additional membranes filters at the treatment plant for $96,000, and that's sewer capital. Roof replacement at Dusty Road, $12,000. Now this next little section is a grant that we've applied for. This grant is new this year. And this is for the Wakefield pump station, estimated $870,000. The grant portion would be largest portion of that, 638. Development cost charges, 229, and the assist factor, 2,300 from the sewer reserve. The Wakefield pump station, if we don't get the grant, it needs to be done. It needs to be underway this year. That facility is starting to fail, and on occasion. And so that's the same $870,000. We can use, this is got a 50% assist factor on this project. So development cost charges, $435,000. MFA financing, $435,000. I'd be looking at a 5-year term on that. And then Trail Avenue Force Main, you're going to get a report from engineering on this item coming up. It's development cost charges and then a $2,000 assist factor. The couple projects at the top here, the filter test bath is a carryover from 2019. And the second project, we just got word the other day that we did not get accepted for this. And this is the West Porpoise Bay, West Sea Shelf sewer infill area. So that's all these numbers here. And so we were not successful in that grant application. So when we push this out to our public meeting, this will be removed from the 5-year capital plan. And then the rest of the information that's on the page 41 and 42 is basically years going outward, 2021, 2022, and 23 and 4. We did have a question from someone that asked about the reclaimed water treatment. We have pushed it out again to 2024 from 2023. And the comment was this was initially budgeted back in 2018, for which year at that time, I don't know. But just due to financial resources and priority, this one does continue to get pushed out. So for now, I'll go back up to page 20. Oh, we have a question.
Would you like me to go ahead?
Yes. Mayor Seegers.
Okay, page 41. So I notice under the capital items, we've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 item down. This is additional membrane filters. And that's for T20. And then we've got additional membrane filters again in 2021. And then what is ultrafiltration unit replacement in 2021?
Christine?
Christine?
Thank you. Some of these budget allocations, I believe, were done at the time the plant was first commissioned. It was projected at a time when membrane filters would need to be replaced. And one of the issues now when we talk about ultrafiltration unit replacement is the membranes that we have now, they have a age life. And I believe that if they're, I believe it's maximum 8 years, and we need them if we want to make reuse water. And we're already having issues with the flow being restricted through those filters. And so it's part of a bigger picture.
Yes, I'm just questioning though, because why we're spending 96,000 in 2020, then in 2021 we're doing 16,000 and 250,000.
I'm not, like I said, I think some of this existed before me, some of this allocation.
So those numbers need to be relooked at.
That entire system needs to be looked at and dialed in. Yes.
Okay. And then a question for Dave. So you've got Wakefield Pump Station on there twice, basically. One if we get the grant and one if we don't. Because it's on twice, is it added twice into the totals at the bottom?
Yeah, it is in there twice, but you'll find that the funding sources, other than DCCs, it's either we're borrowing our part, pardon me, we're going to be borrowing our part of it if we do it on our own. And if we get a grant, the majority of it will be paid by the grant.
Right, but I guess what I'm asking is at the bottom of page 42, where we've got totals.
Yeah.
Because we've got this project in here twice.
Yes.
Is it added twice into the totals?
It is for now, but I just have to, when we push it out, I'm not sure how I want to show it there, because if we don't get the grant, we need to borrow the money. So I need to show the borrowing. And, I guess I can reduce the DCC amount by the 229. So that's not double counted, but, there's two ways we're going to fund this if we don't get it one way. So we need to show it here somewhere.
So wouldn't we typically show it the way that it would cost us the most? Because we don't know we're going to get the grant.
Yeah, well, we've applied for the grant, so I need the budget for that as well, right? So when it gets into the 5-year financial plan, yeah, it's a tough one because we're going at it in two different ways.
Right, but this is like what I'm hearing and what we've seen is this is a project that has to happen.
Has to happen.
So we've applied for the grant. We may not get it. So at this point, we know this has to happen this year.
Yes.
So if we show it in our plan as development cost charges 435,375 and MFA financing 435,375, if we get the grant, we do a budget adjustment or amendment, and we don't have to put as much money in. But if we don't get the grant, we still need to do this project.
Yes.
So I would say take the one out that has the grant and contribution, knowing that we may get that windfall, and that would be great.
Yeah.
But if not, we need to do it.
What I can do is eliminate one of them and then include it as a footnote underneath.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then question about the chemical storage facility. It's pushed out now to 2021. So I remember when this first came forward, this is what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago now? When it came forward, we were told this was mandatory. It was a work safe issue, and now it's being pushed out to 2021. So is it no longer a work safe issue? Why are we now pushing this off? And 350,000?
I'll let Christine, maybe I can add something to that, but it's coming down to priorities. We have two things that kind of leapfrogged it this year a little bit. One was the repair and replacement of the outfall. We have somebody doing an assessment on it right now. And the other one that came up was the Wakefield Pump Station. Christine, do you have anything to add there?
No, I don't have any comments.
Anything else, Mayor Seegers? Do you want follow up?
Yes. So currently on page 42, I mean, with regards to the chemical thing, I mean, we need some kind of answer because it's a work safe issue. So we need some kind of answer on that piece. Page 42. Do we still have, we've got the we don't have a separate septic reserve, capital reserve yet? Is that correct?
No, we do
No.
not.
Okay, that's why the removal of solids from the lagoon is still showing as coming out of the sewer capital reserve at this point.
Yes, and that's one of my recommendations is going to be to add a new reserve called the septic reserve.
Okay. And then I want to go back to the reclaimed water treatment and distribution. So I keep hearing about grants that Green Municipal Fund puts out for dealing with reclaimed water. We haven't actually moved this forward. So we're missing out on these grants that are available that could actually cover the cost for this. So I don't like the idea that keeps getting pushed out. We need to bring that up and have that happen soon. How do we do that?
Well, if we want to bring it back to, what year would you like to bring it back to?
Next year.
2021.
Yeah.
And I'll use grants as the funding source for, I'm going to say 3/4 of it, 66%.
Well, the thing is, we don't even have a plan.
No, we don't.
I mean, we know that the federal government is going to be coming out with funding. We know that. They're talking about coming out with funding for infrastructure projects. We also know that water is a big concern on the coast here. So if we don't actually get any plan in place for reclaimed water, we can't actually take advantage of any of those grants that come out. So we keep pushing it out and don't have a plan. It's never going to happen. So I think it should go in 2020. I mean, ideally, it would be nice to see it this year, but I know we're not going to do that. But so 2021 to do a plan. And I don't think the plan is going to be 225,000. I don't think, but I don't know. Depends what we do with it, right?
Yeah.
Christine's got her hand up.
Just wanted to comment about the $250,000 for the ultrafiltration units replacement and capacity upgrade. That was part of on the last page. This kind of ties in a lot with what we're discussing now, Mayor Seegers, and that we have to be able to have the filters producing and operating on a continuous basis, fairly reliable basis, in order to follow through with future plans for reclaimed water use. And we still have a lot of work to do on that filtration system as far as finding the appropriate coagulant chemicals to run it appropriately and to maintain our ability to be able to force the flow through that's required. So that's this whole $250,000 for new filters, a new filter train, and for just a little research to go into making sure that we're utilizing that system the best way that we can. So it's all tied in a bit. And we're looking at this still from 5 years in. There's still some issues that we still need to figure out to make sure we're running the plant the best that we can. This in particular is one of those things.
Okay, so do we have in our budget for the Water Resource Center access to, I don't know, consulting staff or somebody to be able to come in and assist with doing some of that work and that assessment?
That's what we need. That's the place that we're at right now, to get together and discuss what the best option is for our goals moving forward.
Right. So is there money in the budget, I'm asking, for bringing in somebody like that? Or is that something that needs to be put in here?
I think it's something that we still have to look at. We have, maybe Dave could answer better than that, bit better than I, but we have a lot going on this year. I'm just not sure how that all falls into place.
I would say we have limited funds for consulting at this point, with all the list of things that need to be done at the plant this year and through the system.
Councillor McLean?
Yeah, I just want to reinforce that message. Our sewer system is literally crumbling. That's the issue with the outfall, is that the outfall is crumbling apart. The Wakefield lift station is crumbling. Those are my priorities, and not exploring what we could possibly do with the reclaimed water. So I'm happy leaving it out there, because right now we need to make sure that our system is operating as it should be. And we have a lot of expense to do that. And the proposed increase for the sewer usage fee is already too high. So I don't want to be adding too much to that this year.
Any other comments, council? Has Councillor Toth left us?
Yes, he has left the Zoom meeting. I believe he will be out for the rest of this meeting.
Okay. Councillor Lamb, do you have any questions? No. Mayor Seegers?
Thank you. I think as long as we leave it out in 2023, or wherever it is right now, 2023, we're not going to be able to we won't even have our eye on any grants and things that come forward. If we bring it forward and money comes available, we can take advantage of that. If we keep pushing it out, which we do year after year after year, and then I hear in the community and hear, from Green Municipal Fund that there's been grants, we weren't ready to take advantage of it because we're not even looking for it. So if we put it into 2021 and actually put it on our staff's radar and our radar, if funding shows up for it, great, we can take advantage of it. If it doesn't show up, fine, we push it out another year, but at least it's on our radar and we're looking for it. We keep pushing it out. This is, how many years has this been now? 3-4 years. We keep pushing it out further and further. I think we need to have it front and center so that we actually take advantage of the opportunities that come forward for us. I understand there's lots that has to be done. And I know that these things are pressing, but so is this. Water is an issue on the Sunshine Coast. We have community members who are watching this and they want to see the reclaimed water be used. They don't like it going out into the ocean. The other piece that's going to come down the road is if we start increasing the volume that comes into the water treatment plant, which we will if we add other connections on, we're going to get to a point where we're going to need to put a new outfall in because it won't handle the volume. That's going to be really costly. If we haven't dealt with reclaimed water, so we actually take some of that volume off, we're looking at probably a $4 million bill. So this is also being proactive in dealing with the water before it becomes a situation where we have to do that outfall. So it's all part of what we're doing here. So I understand, Christine saying, yes, we have to, yes, we have to put all of these pieces in. We have a requirement to meet that 10-10.
That's what I was just going to say.
Right? Yeah, there's a 10-10 environmental standard that we need to meet. And Christine, as the operator, needs to be provided with the resources that she needs in order to do that. It's on her. So, even her coming and saying, to Dave, do we have the money for this? Dave has to find her the money for this. We have to go to the community for the money for this because we have an environmental requirement to meet these needs. So, Christine should be coming and saying, I need this stuff, and we need to go to the community and say, we need this because this is what our plant has to produce. So that's the way this has to work. So I think we need to, yes, the community's not going to like it necessarily, that it's going to be costly, but we are looking to the future on this. I'll get off my soapbox.
Don't break your ankle. Christine?
I was just going to reiterate why we have some important needs for some consultants with this whole reuse water, filters, water conservation. There's a lot going on that hinges on the performance of the filters and where we want to go as a community. And it's important we have that money for consultants to help us get there.
So is that in our budget or does it need to be added to our budget?
Excuse me for, I have a little bit I'm not sure where the baseline of the other budget, I'm not sure if it's been changed, what our usual budget is. I'm not sure how that looks and how that fits into this.
I feel like there's a lot of these questions have been sort of answered with some unknowns that I'm generally uncomfortable with. So I wonder if we could, is there any way to drill down to the WRC side of this so we know exactly what we need to provide for this coming year? If that would make us feel more comfortable.
Yes.
Is that possible, Mr. Douglas?
Just taking a look, there's we have included $50,000 in consultant fees. Hang on, no, we have not. Hang on. We have included $50,000 in consultant fees for the whole operation of the WRC. So that would be able to be spent on trying to piece this all together.
Any other comments on this topic? I'm surprised we haven't heard from Councillor Lamb. Is he still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, no, I mean, Darnell is right on the money. I mean, we and Christine is there too. We have to get this plant. We have to keep this plant. Well, we have to get this plant back to where it's supposed to be at this time. So, spending some money on some consultants, I guess. There's new technology out there that, we're setting aside $500,000 for dealing with our dried septic, and there's technology out there that already deals with that, and it's not $500,000 to buy it, and then you take that product and it's usable. So I don't know if it takes a consultant to bring us that information, or if we just go online and bring the information to staff. I don't know.
All right, Council, what sort of thoughts do we want to leave staff with on this topic?
Brenda, we're still going through the.
Yeah. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
Has everyone had their 2 bits? All right, then, Mr. Douglas, carry on.
Okay, I just wanted to remind council that we spend $144,000 to take a very high class of biosolids to Salish soils annually. So what we have sitting on the ground up there is much less of a product than that, and that's $144,000 a year.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. I note that Councillor Kuster's hand is up.
Oh, Councillor Kuster, sorry. A question?
Yeah, just before we move on through this, I just wanted to mention, just quickly going back to the Wakefield pump station. If we do end up getting that grant, I think it would make sense to do that chemical storage, as it is a WCB issue. And I think we should just think about that as well. And that's all I had to say.
What if I got a Brenda?
Yep.
Yeah.
Councillor Lamb?
Yeah, yes. Hey, I just a question for Christina. The pump station at Wakefield is, I don't know if it's 13 years old or something like that, but the other pump stations that we have, which I think there's 13 in the district, are are we in the same state with all those other pump stations? Are they all going to have to be rebuilt or restructured or whatever in a very short period of time, or where are we at with that?
Thanks for that question, Councillor Lamb. Our issue with Wakefield is its location being very, very close to the ocean. It has a lot of high wave activity. And so during high tides, the actual lift station itself can get splashed with salt water, and it causes a lot of corrosion and breakdown of the kiosk and therefore the electrical elements. But the other issue, the biggest issue with Wakefield lift station is the capacity. It's very small for the growth that's happened in West Seashelt. So those are two big reasons about the issues that we've had with Wakefield. And our other lift stations are pretty much in good shape. The other concern one was Anmore, and it's been replaced recently with the new Rippleway lift station. And so the biggest issue right now is, and would be end up being cost effective, would be to have SCADA on those lift stations. But as they sit now, we don't have any ones that are as critical, beside Norwest Bay. Norwest Bay is another one that we should do something about as well. But we are having the electrical component kiosk, a new one installed. It's already being looked after by a contractor. So Wakefield's just has some special issues of its own.
Okay, if we go back to page 20 now of the agenda. Okay, so this was just once I send again our summary of operations. If you look at the bottom of page 41, on page 42 before you left, you'll see that we're planning capital from reserve or from operations of $281,000. And we don't have that money in a reserve. We need to tax for it or charge for it so that we have the money to do that capital. And so this is a summary screen that says the district will need to increase fees by 373 for operations and an additional 281 for capital for a total of $654,000. 10% increase to sewer user fees equals $154,000. So what that would look like to raise the $654,000 would be residential user fees would go from $371 to $529, $158 increase, and that is annually. Seniors apartment rate would go from $228 to $325, a $97 increase, and the commercial rate would go from $780 to $1,114, a $334 increase. At this point, we would be recommending that the parcel tax on the area tax stay at $274. Now, the question has come up as to why would we just charge user fees? Well, a lot of the work that needs to be done is due to the maintenance or the items being worn down through users, the use of whether it be the pumps at the lift station or whether it be equipment at the WRC. This is septic coming through the system. So the user fee is, to me, the right one to be charging because most of these improvements are due to that. So that would be, that's what we're looking at for 2020. So how would that look like in our financial world? We'd be increasing user fees to $2,233,000 for the year. Our revenues would go up for a total to $3.3 million. Our costs would stay the same. So Now our operations would be covered, and it would leave us $292,000 there for capital, which would cover that 281,320. So it would give us a very small buffer with that increase. As we look out into future years, we see next year now. So what happens is, because we're borrowing for 2 items this year, we'll have added costs for next year. We have additional capital that we would like to get done next year. And so this slide just shows what would it look like in 2021. We're saying we would need a lift of $89,000 for operations, an increase $185 for capital, and $207,000 for new debt payments, for a grand total of $481,000. So once again, next year, the 10% increase would to sewer fees would bring in $223,000. And so the fees would look like going from $529 to $643 for residents, $114 lift. Seniors apartment would go from $325 to $395, a $70 increase. Commercial rate would go from $1,114 to $1,355, $241 increase. Going out further to 2022, some of the capital that we're planning for next year would also be borrowed. So the district would need to increase fees for operations of $108,000, an increase to $78,000 for debt payments, for a total of $186,608. And that year, 10% increase to user fees would equal $271,000. So we're looking at residential fees going from $643 to $687, $44 increase. Seniors going from $395 to $421, a $26 increase, and the commercial rate $1355 going to $1,447, a $92 increase, while maintaining the parcel area tax at $274. Going out from there, we would be looking at still increasing fees, but at a lesser rate. The district would need to cover another $119,000 for operations, which would a 10% increase would be $298,000. So we are looking at about 5% in 2023. User fees, as we talked about, going up $27 for residents, 16 for seniors, commercial rate of $57. And then 24, 25, and 26, we would be reviewing, where we're sitting, obviously, in operations, but I don't think we're anticipating seeing much more than a 5% increase for those years, and that would be just to the user fee. Any questions from council?
Councillor McLean. You're muted, Councillor McLean.
I know. There we go. I think the mayor was well in front of me. If I want to give her a chance to go. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
She's saying no. Okay, I want to look at to page 19 then. If you could scroll back for us.
Page 19 of the agenda?
Yeah. Yes, that's the one. So at the bottom of the page, we're looking at a $373,000 surplus for 2020.
Nope. Nope, that's a deficit. Sorry. Should be brackets on that.
Oh.
Oh, that changes it. Never mind then.
Darn brackets, man.
You gotta go to page 21, page 20.
Okay.
Yep.
Never mind.
Okay, we'll go to Mayor Seegers then.
Thank you. So do we have any kind of policy splitting out and identifying what should be covered by user fees and what should be covered by parcel taxes?
The operational policy's been that the parcel tax, which is on more residences, has been used to fund the debt for the WRC.
Typically, though, don't most municipalities have the parcel tax go to capital and user fees go to operating?
I'm going to say it's a mix out there.
Okay.
What the biggest community, well, the biggest questions that have come forward with the parcel tax the way it is, it's on, you know, all properties in the sewage, what do you call it, receiving area or sewage. I can't remember the name of it now, but it's, so there's many parcels of property that are on that don't actually get sewer.
Right.
So they're paying a parcel tax, but they're not receiving any sewage services at all.
Right. The parcel tax also is not, it's by property. So for example, we've got Trail Bay Mall pays $274 as a parcel tax.
Right.
We've got the hospital that is not in the district of Sechelt that does not pay a parcel tax.
Right, but they
So we
pay
have-
user fees though.
They pay user fees, that's right, but they don't pay parcel tax.
Yeah.
So we have some of the big users that are contributing very little towards our capital, even though they have quite a volume. So I mean, I think the parcel tax piece and the user fee things, we need to sort that out. I think we're putting a lot on the backs of the people who are actually using it, and it is a benefit to everybody in the community.
Yep. But just so you know, there's a very small difference. Like it's under 500, the number of people that are getting the parcel tax. Sorry. There's a 500 property difference between the user fees and the parcel tax. So, you know, whatever you transfer, let's say, to the parcel tax, you're only charging another 300 or 400 people that extra. I'm not quite sure if I'm explaining it right.
Yeah. So what you're
Maybe.
saying is it wouldn't result in a whole lot of money?
No. No, not at all. So, you know, so I just, I think on one of my, I'm not going to go look for it now, but on one of my previous, the first meeting we talked about sewer, I had it split on how many homes were paying the parcel tax and how many user fee charges do we have. And the difference was not huge. So you say we have 300 properties out there paying a parcel tax that aren't getting sewer. That's really your only difference, is that.
Okay. Other questions?
Yes,
Councillor Lamb?
yes. Okay, on, where is it there? Page 19, under administration, you've got $352,000 for that. And so what is that? I mean, is that for Christina's wages and people's wages there, or what is that?
Okay, hang on half a sec.
I can't write on there.
So that is, so this is where we talked about charging from the general operating fund into the sewer operating fund. an allocation of administration costs. And so the majority of that 362 is charges from whether it be engineering or administration in the general operating fund that goes over to the sewer operating fund.
So that's, let's say that that's 3 full-time positions, roughly, that would work there every day, 8 hours a day. And you figure that's what is contributed to the Water Resource Center?
Well, it's not the Water Resource Center, it's the collection, septic, and Water Resource Center, all areas. So part of our human resources is charged there, part of the CAO, part of finance, part of engineering are charged into this area.
Sort of like a pro rata basis of
Correct.
the overall administration?
Correct. Finance does the billing and collections and for the sewer operating fund. And so it's not every department from the general operating fund. It's just specific areas of the general operating fund. We accumulate those costs. And I think this one works out to about 14% of those costs are attributed in here.
Okay.
That's I mean, I'm just looking at that and going, that's your $373,000. It goes back and gives you a 0% increase in revenues, you know, to a 0% tax, or, you know, an increase to the residential user, to everybody, you know. But
well, whatever you take out of here, you're adding to the general operating fund.
Well, I like the septic part of it, the sewer part, so we can do that. Throw it back in general revenues. But, yeah. So, okay, yeah, okay.
Anything else, Councillor Lamb?
No, if we're going to move forward to the next part of it.
All right, seeing no other hands in the air. Mr. Douglas?
Okay. Sorry, hang on. Okay, so we did go through the capital, and this is just showing the summary of capital funding. So we're looking for 2020, 281,000 to come from the sewer capital reserve. 861 from development cost charges. And just remember that there's a little bit of a doubling there. It's just over $200,000 of doubling there. Grants and contributions, 728, and MFA financing, $935,000.
So before you move on, so this table will need to change, is what you're saying, based on the conversation we had.
And that's where I put a footnote at the bottom to say that, you know, one project is, yeah. So now we're looking at reserves, how the reserve balance would look over the years. So you're looking at, hang on, 5 years. So, so the one here that I want to look at first is the septic sewer reserve, as we're trying to move money into this from the septic fees. So we're estimating that after 2021, it'd have 650,000. Oh, just hang on half a second here. I think this is utilization of reserves. So over the 5-year period, the utilization of reserves would be 281 from the sewer capital reserve. Nothing for the sewer septic reserve in 2020, but we start to utilize this reserve in 2021, 2022, and then again in 2024. Development cost charge, once again, this one's just over by 200. We'll remove part of that. The usage then would be 600,000. 2020, 221 would be 221,000. And that's just, this schedule is made to make sure that this 5-year financial plan is achievable with what we planned out for the 5 years. So you can see we're still using heavy DCCs in 2024 when it comes to the sewer operating fund. Grants and contributions over the years, still quite heavy. You know, we almost plan our capital around we're getting grants. I think we need to be moving to a formula where, you know, we look at funding, and if the grant is there, that's a bonus. But, you know, we do push off a lot of work because we don't get grants, and we need to move some of these forward over time. And then MFA financing, we're looking at 935 this year and 350 next year. That's the building for chemicals. So that's utilization of the funding sources. And then just looking at what the sewer reserve balance is.
I'm going to interrupt for a second. Go back to that page.
Yes.
So development cost charges. Do we have development cost charges for developments? Like when they come on, do they have to contribute a development cost charge to sewer?
Yes.
Okay.
DCCs are on, well, the sewer parks, roads, water, and I think that's it.
Okay. And that's so they contribute to capital and to treatment?
Well, in our bylaw lists what we can spend the DCC money on. And so it can be, you know, there's some distribution projects there. There's also some enhancements to the WRC when it needs to grow or expand. So it's normally capital nature only, and but it has to be listed in the bylaw to be able to be spent on that item.
So a number of years ago, we had where DCCs could be used to pay off the debt on the Water Resource Center. And then for some reason that changed, and I don't know why it changed.
I believe we had this question a while ago, and when I looked it up, I think that was taken out of the bylaw.
Can we put it back in the bylaw?
Well, not after it's been spent. After it's been spent, no. But on future, maybe yes.
Okay, I think we probably need to look at that and see why it was changed.
Yeah, we wouldn't have the money in there to, let's say, pay the debt and, you know, and do these works, and, you know, there's just not enough money in the DCC.
Yeah, but then we're not charging enough DCCs for sewer then, is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
So we need to look at that.
I would say all areas of sewer we're not charging enough. Yeah. Okay, so just look at our balances in our reserve. We have sewer surplus of 239,000. Sewer capital reserve sitting at 87,000. Public works yard reserve 844,000. Septic reserve, which is going to be recommended as a new reserve, is 0 in it now. And sewer DCCs currently have 2,300,000 in it. And then I've done, sorry.
Can I just ask a question here with regards to reserves?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so we go back to page 28 and it says, yeah, 28, that's 29, 28. Yeah, page 28, it says sewer capital reserve is $28,000, and that's carried to 2020. And then when you go down to page 31, it shows the capital reserve, sewer capital reserve, exactly the same headline saying 87,292.
Okay, so this isn't a balance. This is what we're carrying over from 2019 to 2020. So if I were to just read this across, I would say, okay, so for 2020, we're spending 281,000 from the reserve, of which 253,000 is new capital and 28,000 was a carryover from 2019.
So that's a carryover
Yeah.
from projects that weren't done. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
And so what's the 87,000 then?
That is the reserve fund balance.
So that's the balance.
Yeah. That's why we have to increase revenues, because we need to cover $281,000.
Yeah.
And we only have $80,000 there. And my comfort would not be to take that to zero, because what if something came up in the year?
Yeah.
I mean, if something comes up in the year, we better hope it's not over $86,000.
One filter.
So that's that number there, 87,000. That's the balance in the reserve. That to me is below my comfort zone as a balance in that fund. But you know, it is what it is, and we need to keep working hard at becoming more healthier in this fund.
Right.
So this is just a summary of what the balances would look like going forward over the 5 years going forward. So our sewer capital reserve right now has 287 in it. Sorry, has 87,000 in it. We're basically going to tax for 281 and basically spend it all. So that means the balance won't grow next year. The year after, we're planning a little less capital, so the balance will grow a little bit, and then a little bit more and a little bit more in 2024. So, you know, this is what should be happening each year. It grows more and more, where we're not spending every penny of it, because there will be something big come out down the road and we're going to have to spend it. The septic reserve, same thing. We're looking at putting in about 530,000 this year. Next year, we have some capital or project money we're going to spend. So the reserve is going to come down. 2022, the reserve should start to build again and again and again. And heading towards having money there for closure and set up of a new facility. Development cost charges from what we're going to spend. We're looking at balance at the end of 2020 of about 1.4 million. We're going to spend more in 2021, have a balance of 1.2. And this is, I am not at this point budgeting money in, because we don't know what it's going to look like. We got very little money this year for DCCs. I can't see it being much different next year. And I'm hoping that it'll be different in the near future, because this needs to grow. We will not have enough money in 2024 in the DCC reserve to fund the appropriate level of capital that we'll need to do. And then surplus is just, you know, we don't usually have much in a way of surplus. So, you know, this is really an emergency fund. Once again, it's very low. If you have something explode on you, a pipe break or something you need to jump in and get done, you have $239,000 to look at that. And then the Public Works Reserve, 844, it's intended to be spent this year on the building, and so then it'd be zero from there on out. So in conclusion of the sewer operating fund, it's really underfunded from a revenue perspective. There's some critical work that needs to be done in 2020 and 2021. Yes, we're looking at a significant increase to septic fees proposed in 2020. And definitely a significant increase to sewer user fees to pay for a lot of the critical work. We have $2.8 million capital plan for 2020. And we're looking at it adding just one full-time equivalent into this area for 2020. So that's my summary of that sewer operating.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas. Any questions? Mayor Seegers, please.
So that one full-time equivalent, is that on top of the level 4 operator that we were still looking to get, or is this in place of the level 4 operator?
It is in addition to the level 4 operator. They are understaffed at the WRC, and they struggle to keep up with the work that needs to be done there.
Thank you.
Other questions from council?
Yes.
Councillor Lamb?
Yes. I just, when is the debt repaid on the Water Resource Center? Was that a 10-year repayment program?
Yeah, that is a 10-year. I believe it's over in 2024, or half of it's over 2024, and one last payment in 25.
Okay, so that's so the money that pays for that now is that when we finish, that's $740,000 a year. So that's money that can come back into to be used in this sewer fund.
Absolutely, and it'll need it at that point for sure.
Okay. And the other thing is the agreement with SIB for usage. Has that been renegotiated or brought more to actual, a proper payment for the amount of usage?
We did do an adjustment last year. It went from 109,000. Hang on, it went from 128,000 in 2018 to 159,000 in 2020. Sorry, let me redo that. It went from 128,000 in 2018 to 159 in 2019.
Okay.
So we have been watching those fees fairly closely. It is metered, and we will continue to watch that.
Anything else, Councillor Lamb?
Well, I like that. I like, I just like, it's a source of revenue. One of the things I'd like to maybe have a look at, if we could, is have a look at this parcel tax, where, instead of the user fee, having a comparison with using the parcel tax, with how much of a difference that would make to the increase in the wages, or to the increase.
Overall, it would make a very little increase. So what are we saying, 154 here? It might be then 145. But there's just a very few difference in users compared to the general charge area.
Okay.
Okay, it's very little difference.
Mayor Seegers?
Thank you. I think there's some work that needs to be done as well around the sewer user area or something, whatever it's called. Because we have people who are on sewer who are not part of the user area. Do they pay a parcel tax or not?
So you're talking about the people on the Porpoise Bay side?
Yes,
Porpoise Bay?
that's one place, yes.
Yes, it's a mix over there. The residential are on, and they get charged the flat tax. And there is one small strip that people are not on the user fee.
So that's another bylaw that's going to have to come forward to be revised.
Yes, I've already talked to the clerk about that bylaw. That bylaw would need a very specific to be brought forward and amended, it would have a very, very specific way it needs to be done. I would like to look at options with regards to that bylaw or a new bylaw that would basically replace that one.
Okay, because there are potentially other areas that are going to be coming on this year as well.
Yeah.
Maybe, or next year. Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions with regards to the sewer operating fund? All right.
So the goal today is to be able to at least get a comfort with what we are going to take forward from here with regards to the sewer and the general operating fund. So it doesn't, it just really, what I mean by that is to go forward for a public meeting and take, you know, a lot of what's here and do a, we've been talking about how we're going to do the consultation with the public. And so we're thinking of a similar approach with using Zoom to, you know, have a public basically presentation of the sewer and general operating fund, and then have a bit of a question and answer period at the end. So my goal out of this would be to have enough direction that I can go back and revamp my 5-year financial plan to be able to make it ready for public viewing.
Councillor McLean?
So in terms of level of comfort, it is high. In light of COVID, looking at $140 increase or 150, whatever it was for the user fee in the next year is something that's going to be an impact on a lot of people. So I'd love to see us look at ways to trim that. I think the greatest opportunity I've seen so far is the air quotes one-time expenses. I'd really like to see what we could do in options to get the needed work done, but reduce the impact in this next year. So this is very short-term thinking. We're in a crisis right now, and a lot of people are in dire straits for financials. So I think we need to really look at what needs to get done this year, what can be put off for a year, and how we can work some financial magic, potentially even getting some financing for some of these one-off projects, using surplus, using reserves, just mixing that up a little bit so the impact of these one-time projects don't all hit this year.
Mayor Seegers, please.
I think what I'm hearing you say is we need more clarity around those one-time costs so that we know which ones have to happen this year and which ones are split over a couple of years. We also need the capital list changed so that that's clear, so we don't have anything double in there.
Yep.
And then we need to look at, yeah, and then we need to come back with the numbers, the way they look. Yeah.
So all the items listed in the 1 year list all are needed to be done this year. They will also eventually need to be done either every year or every 2 years or every 3 years, depending on how everything works out with regards to the maintenance on those items.
So what you're basically saying is that over the last few years, we haven't been charging enough to build up any kind of buffer for the stuff that has to happen ongoingly.
Yeah.
And so now, because we don't have that built up, we're at a place where it has to happen and we don't have the money to do it and we have to tax for it this year.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, I could surely take $20,000 out of the capital reserve and maybe another 30 grand out of the surplus and make a small difference to that $153 up, but it would be a minor change. It would be 148 instead of 154. It would be a very minor change.
Councillor McLean.
Yeah, so are there any financing available options for this? Like, can we do some short-term borrowing to cover off some of these one-time events, or do we need larger expenses?
Well, we're already borrowing $900,000 this year, and that's quite a bit on 5-year terms. Your payments are going to be, you got to cover almost 200 grand a year for your debt payments on the 900,000. So if the more you borrow, the more it's going to, make it harder going forward. And you're going to end up where your charges are going to have to be anyway.
And borrowing that $900,000 is dependent on whether we get that grant or not for Wakefield?
Yeah, 435 of that is dependent on the grant.
Okay.
And
so
500
that's worst case scenario is
a
right?
4, yep.
Mm-hmm. This is okay, this was in the small print when I signed up for this thing. As far as these kind of tough decisions, but I sort of mirror what Matt's thinking, because we're just deep in the middle of this. We don't even know what the ramifications of this pandemic is going to be on our community. And I think the thing that we hear over and over again is that there hasn't been enough preparing in all sorts of ways for our infrastructure, and now we're finding ourselves really between a rock and a hard place. Yeah, I'm concerned for sure. I mirror what Matt's thinking. Is there anyone else out there that wants to speak to this? I can't see Tom's picture anymore.
I'm waving at you.
Okay, all I see is your name.
Yeah. Hey, I just, start my video. Okay, but
Step closer because we could see the top of your head.
Yeah, just a tuft of hair.
The best. I guess, I really struggle with this whole thing because I was involved with the conception of this water resource center and all the budgets that we did and everything we worked out with, that the user fees should have paid the debt, and the parcel tax should have paid. I think it was the parcel tax would have paid the debt, and then the user fees would have paid for the usage of the plant, for the repairs and that to the plant. And I don't know if we can, if is it worthwhile having a forensic look at this, or is it just I'd love to know where the money went, or where how come the costs are so high to run this thing, because to me it's not anywhere near where it should be. And I'm very, very frustrated with it. I'm very upset, actually. I'm not frustrated, I'm upset. And so I don't know. I mean, obviously everybody's busy now, but is there a time later in the year when we can do that? But then that's probably a consultant or something we have to hire. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know. Anyways, that's my thoughts. I'm finished.
Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I'm with you, Councillor Lamb. I think costs are climbing for the Water Resources Center. But I think we also haven't had proper staffing in there since almost day one. I know we're currently looking for more staff. We've identified that even if we do hire the chief, or the one position we're trying to hire right now, and we still want to add one more in the budget. So yeah, I think we have a trouble getting a hold of it. So I think that would be a good exercise. I just want to put it off to next year due to COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'll weigh in.
Go ahead, Mayor Singers.
I mean, if I look at the two capital projects that we're looking at funding, the two basic ones, one is the outfall, which we know has to be replaced or repaired, etc., and Wakefield pump station. That's the borrowing at this point. And I don't think we typically borrow for operational, right? We can borrow for capital, we can't borrow for operational. Is that correct?
You're right, yes.
So the upgrades that have to be done to the day-to-day stuff, they're operational. These are operational expenses for the, I don't know, whatever the
One-time charges.
Yes, all of those. Those are operational.
Yeah.
So we can't actually borrow for those. And if we don't do them now, they are going to impact the quality of what goes through that plant, which could potentially cause more costs down the road. It's like if you say, well, I'm not going to change the oil in my car because it's expensive to do that. But what happens if you don't change the oil in your car when it needs to be changed? It starts impacting the engine, the motor, the other things that start going wrong. So we're at a place now with the plant that if we don't do these things, it's actually going to be more costly down the road. So yes, it is costly now. Do I want to have to raise, rates for people? No. But what is the impact if we don't do that next year? If we wait another year and limp along, what's the impact to the plant and what's the cost going to be next year? Is it going to be higher? Probably, because now what we haven't done this year has got repercussions next year on other things. I don't like having to raise it. And I mean, we have some money in there for a consultant to come in and work with us to maybe do some of that fine tuning so that we get the best out of what we have. But I agree, it hasn't been done over the last number of years. The funding wasn't there, and now we're paying for it. Bad timing, but we're paying for it now. So I don't like it, but I would say we have to do it. So that's where I weigh in on it.
I think that's a good summary because I think there's some stuff that we've asked for over the last number of years that have been pushed off, from year to year to year. And now it's like, our plan's not going to work right if we don't do these things. So, okay. So for now, I'll continue, go to the general operating fund.
Yes, please.
Okay. So we're going to go past the capital and we're going to go to page 44 of the agenda. Can I ask for a 2-minute break?
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
All the boys get up. Oh. I am going to get some water, actually.
Brenda?
She went to get water.
No, she's back.
Oh.
She's on mute.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a closed meeting that is following this.
Yep.
And we have somebody attending is only available till 5:45.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if we were to have another meeting,
Mhm. For the general operating fund?
could we do that?
I'd agree with that.
Mhm.
This meeting could be very short, Darnell.
The operating one?
Oh, yeah.
I'd prefer not to take the chance
Okay.
because I don't know where Councillor Lamb's head is there.
Where my head is. Anyways.
Well, does Councillor Lamb want to lead off, and then we'll see if it's going to go anywhere or not, and we could look at scheduling another meeting.
Why don't we say we go till 5:15 or something like
Okay.
that? Do you want to do
5:15?
that?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, so plan to let Mr. Douglas go and ask questions till 5:15, and if we're not satisfied, we'll schedule another meeting.
Yes.
We all good with that? Thumbs up,
Yeah.
nods. All right, Mr. Douglas, over to you. He's muted.
Thank you for unmuting me. I can't find my little thing here now. Okay, so just that's fine. We go to 5:15, but we are starting to run out of time at the other end of this process. To have a public meeting or another meeting, and then a public meeting, and then bylaws to council.
Yep.
So let's see how far we get here.
Mayor Seegers has her hand up.
Okay.
Could we do something on Friday?
Good Friday.
Yeah, right. Good Friday. Staff isn't working.
I said, oh, well, yeah.
Monday is a holiday as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tuesday next week.
We go Tuesday.
I'm pretty fine with whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine, but I think we should leave this one to staff and just send a couple emails.
Find something, but we have to do it soon, right? So you
Yes.
can work it out. Okay. Okay.
Okay, general operating fund. When we left last time, this was our deficit was close to this number because we had to make an adjustment to the RCMP within the budget. So this was the deficit number that came out after that adjustment to the RCMP. These are some of the one-time costs and that are included in the budget as we've displayed earlier. There is an admin assistant there. We're not calling that a one-time cost, but the remote washroom cleaning as well, not a one-time cost. But the rest are close, except for maybe records management, a couple of years at 20 grand. So then I was asked to go away because of the COVID to try and look at options to reduce this budget down to something that would be more palatable for the community. And I've come up with two options I would like to run through with council, and once again for comfort. So I started at the top with the deficit number, and we know what's in the budget. We were going to increase taxation for 3% for the capital, so we're going to take that off the top right away. So we won't accumulate the 3% for this year. That's a $296,000 decrease. We're looking at dragging or bringing in from the fee equalization reserve of $263,000 for this year. Vacant positions. So we have currently a number of positions in the budget that we'd like to add. One was the admin assistant. We have an engineering position that's vacant right now. And we have our GIS person who is off right now on a long-term disability. So if we take these positions and just say, okay, well, we're going to take the GIS out for 6 months, we're going to take the engineer out for 6 months, and the AA, we're only going to have it in for 2 months, we can save $167,500. So that means under option 1, the AA wouldn't start until November in the fall as a hire. The other thing that we've reduced is travel and training. We've had many of our events have been canceled. And so we've taken out the travel portion and the training portion where the training's been canceled. Some of them are starting to replace those with an online thing. We've kept some of the money in for that. So reduction of $45,400 for travel and training. Community satisfaction survey, that was a one-time item that we're recommending to come out. Risk management, we're looking at reducing risk management by $40,000. And a one-time ask, $15,000 for public art, that was a one-time ask that we're recommending that to come out. Additionally, we had wanted to put in an asset management coordinator, and so what we're asking here now is just to put them in for 2 months. We'll start them in November this year instead of not doing it at all. And then we can really be ramping up for next year. We want to put in a 26 grand for GIS consultant because our GIS person is away, and we have money in a reserve for this purpose of hiring a GIS consultant, and it's sitting in our surplus area. So we bring that money in to cover that. So what that leaves us with is a $340,000 deficit, which is a 3.5% increase to taxation. So because we have removed the 3% for capital, we have to then go to the capital list and look at items that we're going to bring out as well. So here's the $296,000 for capital. From the analysis of above, we have about $9,500 for capital that we can use. So we want to use $9,000 from operations to help fund capital. We are wanting to use surplus, 60 grand worth of surplus. This is in a public works reserve that we're going to use to fund work on this building here at the district hall. Capital, we want to reduce the purchasing of fleet by 1 vehicle, 60 grand comes out. We will remove the wayfinding signs. District website, we will split it over 2 years instead of doing it all in 2020. We'll do 30 grand of it in 2020 and 30 grand of it in 2021. Facility booking software, we are going to go forward with it. We picked the option that will cost us 6 grand, so we can remove 6 grand from the budget. And we are going to look at taking out 15,000 from the welcome sign lighting. The other thing that we're looking at moving out 1 year is the Hackett Park stage. Now, this is mainly a grant with $67,500 coming from reserves. We have not heard back on that grant. There's a federal and provincial portion to the grant. So even if it was awarded, we should be able to do this job next year, not this year. We had put in 55 grand for office furniture or new walls in the finance area. So under option 1, we would take that out. And then the parks asked for two pieces of equipment, and we would be reducing one of those. So this would be the trails tractor would come out of the budget, and we would still go with the overseeder. And then as the time goes on, we get new pricing, or we get updated pricing on some of our projects. And the Wakefield culvert is estimated to cost us an extra $114,000 than we had budgeted. So overall, with all these adjustments, we would be sitting at zero, no surplus, no deficit with option one. That's a 3.5% increase to taxation. So then under option two, I'm going to say just about everything's the same except for two items. Option two is a 4.5% increase. And what that would look like is we would keep the GIS position in for 9 months instead of 6. The engineering person would stay at 6 months in, and we start our admin assistant 2 months earlier. So the admin assistant would start in September. And these are the related savings. So far, everything else on this page is the same. Going down, the same asset management coordinator. We would also try and start them in September under the 4.5% increase. So we would be able to get a further ahead this year on asset management, and everything else is the same there. And everything else on this page is the same. Transfer money from reserves and surplus to cover capital from operations. So with a 4.5% increase, it would bring in 450,000, and we would have an operational deficit of 385 to cover. So that means we'd have $64,000 to be able to contribute to capital. And everything else here is the same. The fleet reduced by 1, wayfinding signs comes out, half the district website, facility booking software, welcome lighting, and Hackett Park stage would be moved out. The parts are looser war equipment. And the only thing that changes here is we would do the office furniture for the finance department at new walls for $55,000. That would stay in. And with the increase to the Wakefield project, with a 4.5% increase, we'd really be getting 3 things. We'd be getting an AA a little earlier. We'd get an asset management coordinator a little earlier. And we would get the office walls and furniture in the finance department under the 4.5% increase. So all this is also hinging on the fact that there would not be a 2020 paving program. It would need to be eliminated for this year. But the plan would be to do a catch up in future years. So instead of doing 350 next year, we do 450 next year and the year after to catch up due to the 1 year that we're looking at not doing. There are other options. If we don't get the grant from the airport paving project on phase 2, we could go ahead with the paving program. We'd obviously come back to council to get that done, that approval. And if we don't go ahead with the Wakefield culvert, or we do a short-term fix on that, we could probably go ahead with the paving program, but would still come back to council for approval. So, so then looking forward, we would be looking at in 2021 to 2024. 2021, we'd be looking at a 5 to 7% tax increase, plus the 3% for capital. And 2022 to 2024, we'd be looking at a 2 to 5% increase, plus the 3% for capital. Now I'm just going to review surplus and reserve and DCC balances. The drainage, these are DCCs. Drainage, it's at 629 at the end of last year. roads sitting at 5.6 million. But most of that's going to be spent on the Trail Avenue job because it's a carryover project. Parks DC sitting at 772 for a total of $7 million sitting in reserves right now. Sorry, sitting in DCCs. Statutory reserves, we have very little in the equipment reserve of 765. Parkland acquisition, 81,000. Capital reserve, 1.2 million. But there's a lot of that going to be spent on carryover projects. So we would be putting another $700,000 into this reserve for 2020. Municipal wharf reserve, very little, 530. Gas tax reserve, 804,000. Community forest legacy fund, $1.2 million for a total of 3.3 million. Then we jump down to surplus, which is where we have all these little pockets of money that we need to decide what we're going to do with. We're going to spend some of it this year. General surplus sitting at 912,000. Provision for assessment adjustment. So this is people for taxation. If we have to back fund people who've gone through the appeal process, 11,000. Building reserve, 14,000. I'm recommending we spend that this year. Provision for by-election. I would like to just turn that into election reserve. Reserve for committed expenditures. So this is carryover projects from 2019 that will be spent in 2020. Community building reserve, we're looking at spending that in this year, 2020, 59,000. Community crime reserve, we're looking at the definition of this to see what this money was intended for and if it still needed to be held for that purpose. Development fee equalization reserve, we're looking at spending that this year. The GIS operating reserve, we're spending this year, recommending that we spend this. The strategic community investment fund, sitting at $22,000. We're looking into the definition of what that can be spent on. We have two wharves, small reserves, 33 and 24,000. Small public art reserve. Public safety reserve, we're spending some of this on upgrades to the RCMP front office there.
Is your 1 minute warning, David?
All right, I'm running as fast as I can. Public Works Operation Reserve, we're looking at spending this on the building this year for improvements that are just maintenance that needs to be done. Rockwood Improvement Reserve, we're looking at spending that. Small amount there. Solid Waste Reserve, this needs to be spent back on solid waste issues. Carbon Action Incentive Reserve, we're using, I think, 11,000 of this year. It's going to fund some of our fuel for our vehicles. Trail Bay Wharf Reserve, 39,000. Downtown Revitalization, 59,000. Affordable Housing Reserve, 63,000. Geotech Monuments Reserve, 7,500. Community Forest Dividend Reserve, $96,000. And we could probably break there because we're going to head to the Capitol.
All right. So with that being said, then we will schedule another meeting possibly for Tuesday. Is that what I'm hearing? A general consensus from everybody? Yeah.
You can sign me up for any time.
Not a boy, Tom.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Douglas, and I'll look for a motion to adjourn the committee of the whole meeting then. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.